Other than that, just a beautiful sight. All the boys here lined up in a row. This is actually my first large format ever, 4x5 Zone 6. Camera's been absolutely everywhere. Of course, you have flanked on either side old Winston. He's been getting a lot of mileage on the channel here. And on this side, Marcus, first large format camera I ever restored, and we're going to be working on him today. Thanks a lot for being here, everybody. Excuse the what have you, getting ready to sell my house. I think I mentioned that in another video. But I decided to take a break and do something that I've been wanting to do with old Marcus here, probably going on about 2 years now. And that is going to be replacing the back of old Marcus here with a Toyo 45 rotating back. Because, if you'll notice, we've got the cameras turned around. One of these things is not like the other. Let me show you what I mean. And voila. With these two cameras, you'll notice the back will rotate vertically. So you can shoot both quintessentially portrait mode and landscape. And all you have to do to change these is just undo these little clips up top, rotate the backs, and you're able to shoot vertically. Unfortunately, Marcus here, you cannot do that. Granted, it does have a tripod thread on the side here, so hypothetically I could put a base plate on the bottom and the side. Shooting on a tripod, just turn that over. I don't really want to do that when I'm shooting handheld with them. Of course, that's really not an issue. You can just turn the whole thing vertically. However, with that Toyo rotating back, it'll make things a lot easier. Let me show you. This is the aforementioned Toyo 45 rotating back. Now what actually fell out there were a couple of these little covers, and believe me, we're going to talk about those in just a second. Anything else? Okay. Toyo 45 rotating back. I think this is a 45S camera. That's what this came off of. And what it lets you do is just articulate that little lever, and this whole thing turns just like that. So it goes from landscape to vertical. Very easy. And on top of that, one of my favorite things about Marcus, my pacemaker Speedgraphic, is that shroud that's spring-loaded.
Cool.
I didn't want to lose it, so I made sure I got it back. It has that spring-loaded shroud too. I love that. Now naturally the problem arises, how do you put a Toyo back on a pacemaker Speedgraphic? Of course you need some type of adapter, and that's this right here. Little piece of machined aluminum. The outside perimeter of the adapter has the holes that match up on the back of the Speedgraphic. It has 4 holes on the front, which are going to become thoroughly interested in just a second. But the Toyo back fits right on the adapter, like so. And then that whole thing is going to go on the back of Marcus. So adapter goes on, back goes on the adapter, and everybody's going to have a really good time. But like most things in life, there's always a catch. When I got the adapter, having never used any Toyo large format camera, let alone one with a rotating back, I just assumed it was going to be a total plug and play situation, meaning that I would just screw the adapter on the back of the camera, which it actually came with 4 screws, and then that the Toyo back would just bolt right onto the back of the adapter. That's not the case. The adapter itself, again, is not going to be a problem. These holes match perfectly to the back of Marcus. The issue arises, and that goes back to these little plates, because I've already been examining that. When you put the rotating back, mate that to the adapter, there's nowhere to bolt it on. And I noticed this right off the bat when I got it. Like I said, I've had this for 2 years. I've been putting it off because originally I was just going to drill and tap some new holes. And I'm like, why am I going to do that? I'll just get some self-tapping screws but when I really look closer, these little areas, these are the points of adjustment for the back itself. They are so busy that even if I ground them off, bored out some holes, or just put some screws in there, truthfully, I'm terrified of completely messing up the back to where it either wouldn't rotate, or like I said, I just don't want to destroy a thing of beauty like this or take the chance. So what I've decided to do is use some good old JB Weld Quick. Now, I've used JB Weld for quite literally all my life, all things up to this point. Now, what this allows you to do, if you're not familiar with JB Weld, it's a binary compound, more or less a binary steel epoxy. So you mix these two together, it joins things extremely tight. I've seen personally this have more or less a tensillary strength of upward of 1,000 pounds. So I don't think it's gonna have any trouble holding this on to the adapter. I really don't know, but we're about to find out. So what I'm gonna do, this is powder coated aluminum. I'm going to get some sandpaper, go around the track of the adapter to try to get some bare aluminum exposed. I'm going to lay a pretty fat bead of JB Weld all around that. We're going to stick the adapter on the rotating back and then bolt that on to Marcus. Now, something else I've been kind of curious about. That guy I told you, the only other person that I've seen for sure do this, is emphatic that it will not cut off the top and bottom of the frame when you go vertically. Personally, I don't know how that would not be possible, because you're going from a horizontal frame on the back of the Speedgraphic that's 4x5. So if you flip that over and that shortens the top and bottom, I don't see how it would be anything but impossible for that not to cut off any of the frame. I figure worst case scenario, if it does, then we're left with sort of a frame, one-to-one frame, square format, large format camera, which is fine with me. So I'm just going to do it anyway. All right, enough rambling. I'm going to get to it. And if I come up with anything along the way, I'll stop and tell you. Or I'll do one of those snazzy narrations. I know you love those. Get our sandpaper here. Gonna fold it. Try to preserve as much of the finish as we can. And just going to go around this track. Just rough it up a little bit so that JB Weld which, I mean, all this is going to be, it's going to be covered up anyway, but still. All right, that's that. I'm going to get a Q-tip, run around that track with some isopropyl alcohol, get it good and clean. Yeah, then we'll make lemonade. Just a quick FYI here. Should you go this route with the adapter that I have, at least, you know, I thought this was powder coated. I don't think it's powder coated. Pretty sure that's just some kind of matte paint, because you can't really see it on the adapter, but yeah, that's taking some of that finish off. So I'm not sure. So the more you know. I wouldn't say, you know, definitely go ahead and put some alcohol in that or some kind of cleaner to get that dust off. But yeah, it's definitely not powder coated. Before I glue these little covers back on and we reach the true point of no return and JB Weld this sucker onto the adapter, I just wanted to show you, in case you want to do this yourself, exactly what I was talking about as far as these little corners being so busy. Of course, there's 4 corners, and each one of them have some of these little adjusting screws. Depending on the model of your back, you may have 4, but there are 2 on mine. And originally I'd thought with these screws that came with the adapter, which they're really long, I had thought those would go directly through the adapter into the rotating back through one of these holes. I even thought, after I was examining it, that the adapter, when you place it on the back, I thought that these screws would replace one of these screws, and that's how it was going to be held on there. At least with mine, that's not the case. These do not line up at all with the screw holes on the back of the adapter. So I'm not sure. This, you know, if you're like me and you're considering this, or you've never saw how that is, this is a Toyo 45 rotating back. I think it's a 45S. This one has adjusting screws. This one has adjusting screws, and then these are just going to be regular bolt-ons. So yeah, just giving you a leg up if you want to do this yourself. We'll go ahead and remove the back from old Marcus here. Now, if you watched the complete restoration of Marcus, you've probably saw this before about how to remove the back, but I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video that the adapter for the Toyo came with these 4 screws. And like I said, I don't know what I was thinking, but there are actually, if you do this yourself, 2 screws at the top of the back on the Speedgraphic pacemaker, and 3 at the bottom, but there's also one right over here on the side. You can see that or not. So you'll take the 2 off, 2 out of the top, 3 out of the bottom. You'll have to remove the spring, the back itself here, and then using a flathead screwdriver, remove that 6th one there. Now it's important to note that the adapter does not have this 6th hole on the side, so I guess that's not going to be an issue. I think 5 screws will be plenty to hold that back on. I don't know. Like I said, we're about to see. So yeah, let's get to it. So of course, I forgot to hit the record button for the time lapse. But trust me, folks, it's just removing these screws, taking that off. And I'm going to mention this because I know some smart ass is going to sound off in the comments about it. Yes, I do have a little lens cover on the lens down here, so don't give me any shit. So with all those screws out, we're just going to lift off the whole back. There we go. Very easy to do. The only thing, you probably noticed it by now, and I'm not going to lie, I just now thought about this. It's going to do away with the little eyepiece for the sports finder. I very well, after we get this on there, I may very well drill a hole and put that back on there because I actually do use that quite a bit. So I'm embarrassed I didn't think about that until now, but that's the joys of life. So here we have the back of Marcus, the shutter mechanism. If you've watched not just the restoration video, but also the calibration video for the shutter, you'll see how this marvelously constructed piece of engineering works. This is one of the reasons why I got this shutter, got the camera, was because of the focal plane shutter here. Now, of course, this is a Speedgraphic, so it has a focal plane shutter. I want to note, as far as I know, if you have a Crown graphic, even, you know, of course, Crown graphics don't have the focal plane shutter, this adapter should work for you. I think everything else is actually physically, at least dimensionally, the same on a Crown graphic as it is with the Speedgraphic, but I'm not sure. But like I said, I think it's going to work for you. I think first, just to simplify the operation, I'm going to fit the adapter onto the back of the camera. There we go. 2 at the top, 3 at the bottom. Fits perfectly. The holes line up perfectly. 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. Like I said, there's one underneath here that's I guess not going to be there anymore. And I'm thinking that all these screws should still work just fine with this, because that's not any thicker than the original bag that we removed. So let's just go ahead and start the process. Yeah, that snugs up just fine. And I'm going to do my best to remember to start the time lapse here for you. So that is on. I've got to give credit where credit is due here. This adapter fits beautifully. Even the holes here, they're countersunk. The original screws, I mean, it looks like it's something that came from the factory. That fits very snug here. With that leatherette, I'm fairly certain that's going to form a very decent and natural light seal, even without having that 6th screw. But if it turns out in our test we run into some light leaks, I may just take this off, run a strip of felt down through there, as you've seen me do with some of my other light seal repairs, and that shouldn't be an issue. So here's the fun part. We've got the adapter on. So let's JB weld the Toyo 45 back. Something I thought about while I was putting the screws on here. We were wondering about how that was going to be with vertical as far as cutting anything off. And it occurred to me, I measured this, and I think we're going to be okay because this is actually 5 by 5. Actually, it's closer to 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. So I think we're going to have plenty of coverage there. Like I said, we'll know for sure when we do our tests later on after everything's said and done, but I'm not really worried about that so much anymore. Like I said, actually I'm more worried about our sport finder working with this, but worst case scenario, if I can't get that back on there, I can just always use the range finder when shooting handheld with old Marcus here. One last thing I'm doing here, although it's absolutely abhorrent to the very core of my being, crushing to what is left of my soul, going around the corner of the facing of the back and roughing that off, getting the black paint just off the perimeter here, so hopefully it'll give a better bond with that JB weld. Still, man, oh my God, this is painful to do. I'm so sorry. I just hope it works. Just doing a little dry fitment of the back to the adapter. Like I said before, no play in that. It's an absolute perfect fit. Unlock it like that. You can kind of get the idea of how that's actually going to work. And like I said, I don't think the JB weld's going to have any trouble as far as securing that for the turns, especially since it's actually seated down into that track. So a lot of the lateral motion is going to be more or less taken up by the physical, that groove in the adapter. All right, yeah, there's only one way to find out, so let's mix up some JB weld. I'll squeeze out 2 equal portions of our old JB here. One is essentially a binder. The other one, sort of the substrate, is going to hold it together. Feels pretty good. Now this next part requires extremely specialized tools. Standard issue toothpick. Gonna mix it up. And once I get this mixed, I'm going to use said toothpick to lay this bead of the JB weld into that track for the rotating back. Poet didn't know it. Make a rhyme anytime. Now while this is not extraordinarily fast setting, I don't want to waste any time either. And yes, folks, I still have that cap over the back of the lens. In goes the JB weld. And we're just going to do this around the entire track. I'd rather have too much than not enough. Not really going to worry about the overhang, because once I put the back on there, it's going to extrude a lot of that from the track anyway, and I can just wipe it off and clean it up. And that should do it. So we've got a good bit of JB weld seated into this track. I like it. Cover your ears, because it's time to put our 45 Toyo back onto the adapter. Almost dropped it. Did you see that? Everything's fine. I'm in control. All right. Give it a nice wiggle. Make sure we're set in there. And what I'm going to do is get some moderate weight. I don't want to put too much on that. Some moderate weight so that keeps contact with that JB weld. Alright. And while that's setting there a second, grab another Q-tip, get some alcohol, go around the outside of that bead. Now, of course, folks, I've always been a function over form type of guy, even though I'm nearly unbearably handsome. I'm still going around the outside of this to clean that up just a tad. Now, of course, you can't get to the inside edge. Of course, nobody's ever going to see that. But it just makes it look a lot better, a lot more finished to go around and clean up that excess JB weld. Now, supposedly, this JB weld quick will set up in about 5 minutes. And I hadn't even made it all the way around the perimeter of this to clean it up. And it was more or less getting too much to actually clean up. So it may have a few rough spots, which is fine. Like I said, just want to make it as clean as possible. So anyway, we're done. At least as much as we can do right now. We'll just leave that weight on there. And as I said, 5 minutes to set up here. I think the manufacturer says an hour to actually be usably cured. Given what this is, and me being a thorough bastard, I'm probably going to let this set up overnight, and we'll see how it goes tomorrow. I guess, yeah, the only thing left to do, let this get good and cured. Tomorrow, we'll take it out, shoot a few test frames. Yeah. So, predictably, well, I wouldn't say predictably, but typically, I have ran off without a tripod, which is honestly okay, since Marcus is, you know, technically a press camera. It's made to be used handheld, so we're going to be shooting handheld today. What I'm planning on getting done, I think I have 7 sheets of AGFA reading sensitive x-ray film that I cut. Would be 8, but of course I scratched one, so I'm like, yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go around, see what I can shoot, take 2 frames each. Depending on the lighting, it's a really bright day, but depending on the lighting, I'm gonna try to use just the focal plane shutter only. I may have to use the Copal shutter. Oh, I think I hear a kitty. I'm here at that place where we've seen the kitty. Kitty, oh kitty, there you are. I didn't bring you any treats today. How you doing? Yeah, me too. Well, you liking the warmer weather? Big Sal? I guess you're used to doing that. Yeah? Oh, there, kitty. Well, I'm always glad to see you. Yeah, I come to see you the last time. You just ignored me. You was eating your food. Well, that's okay. Yeah, yeah. You remember me? Yeah. Hey, buddy. I know you're ready for warmer weather. You're looking so good. Okay. Well, you're welcome to go with me if you want to.